The notification on my cousin's phone caught my eye from across the room. Historic win, law firm secures 50 malordern settlement in consumer protection case. My heart skipped as I watched her scroll past it without a second glance. If only they knew. I'm Danielle, and I've spent my entire life being the family's afterthought. Even now, standing in my parents' lavishly decorated living room during our annual family reunion, I can hear my father's booming voice drowning out all others as he brags about my brother. Elias just closed another major deal. Dad's chest puffed with pride. That's my boy, always reaching higher, following in my footsteps, just like I knew he would. I took a long sip of wine, letting the bitter liquid match my mood. The crystal glass caught the afternoon light, creating tiny rainbows on the hardwood floor, more attention than I usually got at these gatherings. Danielle, honey, Laura, my brother's wife, sidled up to me with her perfectly practiced smile. Still doing that little lawyer thing? Still doing that little lawyer thing, I echoed, forcing a smile. My fingers tightened around the stem of my wine glass. Oh, that's nice, she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. You know, Elias's company just had its best quarter ever. He's thinking of expanding internationally. Before I could respond, my father's voice cut through again. Everyone, gather round. Elias has an announcement. The family dutifully circled around my brother like moths to a flame. I hung back, watching my mother Sophia's eyes find mine from across the room. She gave me a small, apologetic smile before turning her attention to her golden child. We've just secured a partnership that will revolutionize our market position, Elias announced, his arm around Laura's waist. The timing couldn't be better, really. Some recent industry changes have actually worked in our favor. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Those industry changes were directly related to my lawsuit, but of course, he had no idea. That's my son, Dad clapped Elias on the back. Always making the right moves. You know, when he was just 10 years old? I slipped away to the kitchen, needing a moment to breathe. Lisa, my best friend and fellow lawyer who I'd dragged along for moral support, followed me. You okay? She whispered, leaning against the granite countertop. Just peachy, I muttered, refilling my glass. Love watching my brother take credit for my work without even knowing it. You could tell them, you know, right now. Watch their faces when they realize, not yet, I cut her off. The timing needs to be perfect. The kitchen door swung open, and my mother entered, looking tired. Danielle, sweetheart, your father's asking where you went. He wants everyone together for photos. Of course he does, I said, straightening my blazer. Heaven forbid we miss documenting another moment of Elias's triumph. Danny, Mom started, but I was already moving past her. Back in the living room, Alvin, Laura's brother, and Elias's business partner was checking his phone. His eyes widened slightly, and he looked up, catching my gaze. For a moment, I wondered if he'd seen the news too. Everyone squeeze in, Dad called out, gesturing with his hands. Elias and Laura in the center, of course. Danielle, you can stand on the end there. As the family arranged themselves, I took my assigned spot on the periphery. The photographer, yes, my father had hired a professional photographer for this impromptu family gathering, adjusted his camera. Maybe we should get one of just Elias's immediate family, Dad suggested, and something in me snapped. Actually, I said, my voice carrying across the room, I think I'll skip the photos. I have some work to review for tomorrow. Oh, come now, Dad frowned. Surely your little cases can wait. I saw Lisa tense from her spot near the window, knowing exactly which little case I'd just won. $50 million worth of little. You're right, Dad, I said sweetly, taking my place back at the edge of the group. Some things are more important than work. The camera clicked, capturing our smiles, some genuine, some forced. As we dispersed, I caught another glimpse of my cousin's phone, still open to the news article about my victory. Soon enough, they'd all know. But for now, I'd let them have their moment in the sun. After all, The best revenge is served cold, and mine was just about perfectly chilled. Look what Elias made in art class today. Mom's voice echoed from 20 years ago as I stood in my old bedroom, now converted into Dad's memorabilia room. The walls were plastered with Elias's achievements, academic awards, business magazine features, and that damned macaroni art piece that somehow still held a place of honor. I'd escaped upstairs during the reunion, needing a break from the constant reminder of my second-place status. Lisa followed, as always my faithful shadow. "Is that you?" she asked, pointing to a dusty family photo tucked in the corner. I was 12, wearing braces and a forced smile, while Elias stood front and center with his debate team trophy. "Yeah," I said, picking up the frame. This was right after I won first place in the state science fair. Dad didn't come. He was at Elias's debate competition. "Your volcano must have been impressive," Lisa smiled. "It wasn't a volcano. I developed a preliminary model for water purification in developing countries." I set the photo down harder than necessary. Not that anyone noticed. A creak in the floorboards announced my mother's arrival. "I thought I might find you up here," she said softly. "Your father's showing everyone Elias's old Harvard acceptance letter again." "Of course he is," I muttered. "Did he bring out my Columbia Law acceptance? Oh, wait, that one's probably in the trash where he put it." "Danielle," Mom sighed. "You know he's proud of you too, in his way." "Really? When was the last time he mentioned my achievements to anyone? When was the last time he even asked about my cases?" Before Mom could answer, voices drifted up from below. "Harrison, tell them about how Elias secured that merger in his first year." Laura's voice carried through the floor. "Now that's a story." Dad's booming response followed. "My boy showed them all how it's done. Natural business sense, just like his old man. Not like—" He caught himself, but we all knew what he was going to say. "Not like Danielle." "I should go check on the appetizers," Mom said quietly, retreating from the uncomfortable moment. Lisa touched my arm. "You okay?" "You know what's funny?" I said, moving to the window. "When I was 14, I told Dad I wanted to be a lawyer. He laughed and said I should consider something more suitable, like teaching or nursing." "What changed his mind?" "He didn't. I changed my own mind about needing his approval." The door opened again, this time revealing Elias. "Hey, sis, hiding up here?" "Just reminiscing." I gestured to the shrine that was once my room. "Remember when we used to play office up here?" he asked, picking up one of his old trophies. "You always wanted to be the boss." "Yeah, and you always told me girls couldn't be bosses." "Kids say stupid things," he shrugged. "But look at us now, both successful in our own ways." "Our own ways," I repeated, "some more celebrated than others." "Come on, Danny, don't be like that. You know Dad's just Dad." A commotion downstairs interrupted us. Alvin's voice carried up, excited. "Harrison, you won't believe these quarterly projections. The regulatory changes from that class action suit have opened up entirely new markets for us." My stomach tightened. Lisa shot me a knowing look. "That's my boy," Dad's voice boomed again. "Always positioning himself to take advantage of opportunities." Elias beamed. "Duty calls. Coming down?" "In a minute." After he left, Lisa turned to me. "How long are you going to let them take credit for your work?" "Until the moment is right," I said, straightening my shoulders. "Let them enjoy their celebration. Soon they'll know exactly who made those regulatory changes happen." We headed downstairs, where Alvin was showing Dad some figures on his tablet. "These numbers are incredible, Ba," Dad gushed. "Elias, my son, you've outdone yourself." "Actually," Laura chimed in, "my sources say it was some hotshot lawyer who pushed through those changes. Someone from Morris and Stanley." She looked right at me. "Isn't that your firm, Danielle?" "Is it?" I smiled innocently. I hadn't noticed. The room felt suddenly warmer as Alvin's eyes narrowed slightly. He was starting to put the pieces together, but wasn't quite there yet. Well, Dad waved his hand dismissively. Whoever it was, they helped my boy's company flourish. That's what matters. I caught Lisa stifling a laugh behind her wine glass. The irony was almost too perfect. To success! Dad raised his glass, looking proudly at Elias. To success, I echoed, thinking of the case files sitting in my office, my signature on the final settlement that had changed everything. However it comes. 3 years of my life, I whispered to Lisa as we stood on the back patio, away from the family chaos. 3 years of sleepless nights, missed holidays, and endless depositions. And they're in there celebrating like Elias orchestrated the whole thing. The memory of that final day in court was still fresh. The judge's gavel coming down, the victorious nods from my colleagues, the tears in our clients' eyes. I'd fought tooth and nail against one of the biggest corporations in the country and won. Remember when you first got the case? Lisa asked, pulling me from my thoughts. You were terrified. Objection, counselor, I smirked. I was appropriately cautious. You were hiding under your desk when I found you. It was a strategic retreat. The sliding door opened, and Sophia, my journalist friend, stepped out. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Hiding from my family's overwhelming pride in my achievements, I deadpanned. About that? Sophia lowered her voice, glancing over her shoulder. I've been doing some digging into the ripple effects of your lawsuit. You're not going to believe what I found. Before she could continue, Laura's voice cut through the air. Danielle, your father's asking for you. Something about wanting to hear about your, what did he call it? Your little court thing? I shared a knowing look with Lisa. My little court thing. Right. Back inside, Dad was holding court in the living room, Elias at his right hand as usual. Ah, there she is. Tell us about your latest case, sweetheart. Something about consumer protection? Actually, I started, but Elias interrupted. Dad, you should see these numbers Alvin just showed me. The market shift from those new regulations has been incredible for us. The regulations that came from I tried again. Your brother's always had perfect timing, Dad beamed. Remember when he sold his first company right before the market crashed? I caught Mom's eye across the room. She gave me that same apologetic look she'd been giving me for 34 years. I remember, I said quietly. It was the same week I made partner. Oh, was it? Dad looked genuinely surprised. Must have slipped my mind. Lisa stepped forward, her lawyer mode activated. Actually, Harrison, Danielle just won a landmark case that... Lisa, I touched her arm. Not now. Alvin was staring at his phone again, brow furrowed. He looked up at me, then back at his screen. Interesting timing, he muttered. What's that? Elias asked. Nothing, Alvin said quickly. Just reading about some legal news. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Need to talk to you now. Your lawsuit. It's directly connected to Elias's company's sudden windfall. I excused myself to the kitchen, where Sophia was waiting. The regulatory changes your lawsuit forced, she whispered urgently. They didn't just hurt the company you were fighting, they created a massive opportunity for smaller firms in the same sector. Let me guess. Firms like my brother's? Exactly. Your victory basically handed him a golden ticket. I leaned against the counter, letting out a laugh that was half bitter, half amused. So I'm responsible for his latest success, and he doesn't even know it. Danielle, Mom called from the dining room. We're about to cut the cake. Coming, I called back, then turned to Sophia. Not a word about this, not yet. Back in the dining room, Elias was standing at the head of the table, champagne glass in hand. I want to thank everyone for being here today. This past quarter has been incredible for us, and it's all thanks to... Your sister, Alvin cut in suddenly. All heads turned toward him. My heart stopped. What? Elias asked. I mean, Alvin backtracked smoothly. Family support is everything, right? Even the little contributions matter. I could feel Lisa's tension beside me, knew she was ready to jump in and defend me, but I squeezed her hand under the table. Not yet. To family. Elias raised his glass, oblivious to the undercurrents. To family, everyone echoed. I raised my glass, too, catching Alvin's eye across the table. He knew, or at least he suspected. The pieces were falling into place, and soon the whole picture would be clear to everyone. More cake, anyone? Mom asked, trying to break the tension she couldn't quite understand. Actually, I said, standing up, I think it's time I shared some news of my own. But before I could continue, Dad's phone rang. Hold that thought, sweetheart. Elias, son, it's that reporter from Forbes. Everyone quiet. I sat back down, watching Dad fawn over Elias's upcoming magazine feature. The time wasn't quite right, but it was coming. Danielle! Sophia grabbed my arm, pulling me into the study. You need to see this right now. She thrust her phone in front of my face, open to a breaking news article. Anonymous lawyer behind industry-shaking victory revealed? I read aloud, my stomach dropping. Who leaked this? Keep reading, Sophia urged. The article didn't name me directly, but contained enough details that anyone paying attention could connect the dots, especially anyone who, say, ran a company that had mysteriously benefited from the case. Does anyone else know? I asked. Alvin's been reading it for the last 10 minutes. He keeps looking at you like you're a puzzle he's trying to solve. A knock at the study door made us both jump. Speaking of the devil, Alvin stood there, phone in hand. Interesting reading material, he said, stepping in and closing the door behind him. Very interesting coincidence, don't you think? I'm sure I don't know what you mean, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Cut the act, Danielle. This was you, wasn't it? The lawsuit, the regulations, all of it? Before I could respond, the door opened again. Elias walked in, all smiles. There you are. Dad's looking for, what's going on? Nothing, Alvin said quickly. Just discussing some legal matters with your sister. Legal matters? Elias laughed. Come on, Alvin. We've got investors waiting on the phone. Whatever small-time case Danielle's working on can wait. I saw Sophia's hand tighten around her phone. Small time? She muttered. Actually, Alvin started, but I cut him off with a look. Go ahead, Elias. Don't keep your investors waiting on my account. After they left, Sophia turned to me. You're really going to let him keep talking to you like that? For now. A commotion from the living room drew us out. Laura was reading something on her tablet, her face growing increasingly pale. Honey, she called to Elias, you might want to see this. Not now, dear. I'm on the phone with... Now, she insisted, her eyes flicking to me. I felt a small thrill of satisfaction. Laura was smart. She'd figured it out, too. What's all the fuss about? Dad asked, peering over Laura's shoulder at the tablet. His eyes widened slightly as he read. It says here that a female lawyer from Morris and Stanley... He trailed off, looking up at me with an unreadable expression. What about Morris and Stanley? Elias asked, finally hanging up his phone. Nothing, I said smoothly. Just some industry news. Nothing as important as your investor call. Lisa appeared at my side, practically vibrating with suppressed emotion. Danielle, please, let me tell them. Tell us what? Mom asked, entering the room with a fresh tray of cookies. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alvin was still staring at his phone. Laura was looking between me and Elias with growing anxiety, and Dad seemed frozen in place, the article still visible on Laura's tablet. Well, Sophia broke the silence, journalist instincts kicking in. It seems there's been a rather significant development in the legal world, a case that's changed the entire industry landscape. Isn't that right, Danielle? Is this about that class action thing? Elias asked dismissively. The one that coincidentally helped our company? Coincidentally, I repeated, the word tasting bitter. Right. Danielle, Alvin said slowly, how long have you been working on this case? 3 years, Lisa answered for me. 3 years of hell, fighting against impossible odds, while everyone in this room except me treated her work like it was nothing. Lisa, I warned. No, they need to know. They need to understand what you... The sharp ring of Elias's phone cut through the tension. He glanced at the screen. It's Forbes again. Dad, they want to know more about how we positioned ourselves to take advantage of the regulatory changes. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The sound was sharp and sudden, making everyone turn to look at me. Something funny, sis? Elias asked. You could say that, I replied, meeting Alvin's knowing gaze across the room. Danielle, Mom said softly, is there something you want to tell us? I looked around the room, at Dad's confused face, at Laura's growing comprehension, at Elias's complete obliviousness to the bomb about to drop. Actually, I said, straightening my shoulders, there is. But maybe we should wait for Elias to finish his interview first. After all, I wouldn't want my little court thing to interrupt his moment of glory. The phone kept ringing in Elias's hand, but he didn't answer it. For the first time that day, his full attention was on me. Answer your phone, Elias, I said sweetly. Forbes is waiting. The tension in the room crackled as Elias looked between his ringing phone and my face. Finally, he declined the call. What's going on, Danielle? He asked, his usual confidence wavering slightly. Yes, dear, Dad chimed in. What exactly are you trying to say? Before I could answer, Alvin stepped forward. I'll tell you what's going on. Your daughter, the one whose work you've been dismissing all day, is the anonymous lawyer behind the biggest corporate lawsuit of the year. The room fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. That's ridiculous, Dad scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. Danielle handles small claims and minor disputes. This case was worth $50 million, Lisa finished for him, plus regulatory changes that reshaped the entire industry. Laura's hand flew to her mouth. The changes that saved our company were all thanks to your sister-in-law, Sophia confirmed, her journalist smile firmly in place. Quite a story, isn't it? Elias sank into the nearest chair. That's not possible. Oh? I raised an eyebrow. And why's that, brother dear? Because little Danielle couldn't possibly handle something so important? I didn't mean 3 years, I cut him off. 3 years I worked on this case. Every holiday I missed, every family dinner I skipped, every time you all rolled your eyes at my little lawyer thing, I was building the case that would eventually save your company. But, Dad started. But what, Dad? But you didn't notice? But you were too busy praising Elias to see what I was accomplishing? But you never thought I could do something this significant? Mom stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? Lisa asked sharply. Would any of you have actually paid attention? That's not fair, Laura protested. We always supported... Supported? I laughed. Is that what you call it? Just today you referred to my career as that little lawyer thing, and that was one of the kinder comments. Alvin cleared his throat. The regulatory changes from your lawsuit, they're the only reason our company survived last quarter's market shift. I know, I said quietly. You knew? Elias stood up suddenly. You knew and you didn't say anything? Like you've been saying anything about my achievements for the past decade? The room fell silent again. Dad was staring at the floor, Mom was wringing her hands, and Elias looked like someone had just told him Santa wasn't real. I need a drink, Laura announced, heading for the bar cart. Make it a double, Alvin called after her. So, Sophia said brightly, pulling out her reporter's notebook, anyone want to comment on the record about this fascinating turn of events? Put that away, I told her, but I couldn't help smiling. Danielle, Dad finally spoke, his voice unusually quiet. I don't know what to say. That's a first. Danny, Elias stepped toward me. I had no idea. I mean, I knew you were working hard, but this? But you never thought to ask what I was working on, did you? None of you did. The sound of glass shattering made everyone jump. Laura had dropped her drink. the amber liquid spreading across the hardwood floor. "Sorry," she mumbled. "It's just, all this time, our company's success was thanks to the person you've all been patronizing since childhood," Lisa finished. "Ironic, isn't it?" Dad took a step toward me, then stopped. For the first time in my life, he looked uncertain. "Sweetheart, Save it," I held up a hand. "I didn't do this for your approval. I did it because it was the right thing to do. The fact that it helped Elias's company was just karma, I guess." "Some karma," Alvin muttered. Elias's phone rang again. This time he turned it off completely. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to have a family meeting, a real one, where we actually listen to each other." "That would be a nice change," I said. "Danielle," Mom touched my arm, "we're so proud." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't say you're proud now, not when you weren't interested before." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone seemed to be processing the shift in family dynamics, the realization that the hierarchy they'd taken for granted had been built on sand. "Well," Sophia broke the tension, "I believe this calls for champagne. The good kind, not the stuff you've been serving all day." As she went to fetch the bottles, I caught Lisa's eye. She gave me a subtle nod, the kind that said, "Well done," and "It's about time," all at once. The storm had broken, but the aftermath was just beginning. To unexpected victories, Sophia raised her champagne glass, breaking the uncomfortable silence that had settled over the room. "And to the people who never saw them coming," Lisa added pointedly. Dad cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should make a toast to my brilliant sister," Elias interrupted, standing up, "who not only won an impossible case, but saved my company in the process." I nearly choked on my champagne. "Really, Elias? Now you want to acknowledge my achievements?" "Danny, I know I've been an arrogant, self-centered," Lisa started. "Lisa," I warned, though I couldn't help smiling. "No, she's right," Elias said. "I've been exactly that. We all have." Laura stepped forward, wineglass trembling slightly in her hand. "The press will want to know who was behind the lawsuit. Once they connect the dots, they'll realize that the golden boy's success came from his overlooked sister," Sophia finished, scribbling in her notebook again. "Are you recording all this?" Laura asked nervously. "Every word," Sophia grinned. "It's not every day you witness such a perfect example of poetic justice." Dad suddenly stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air." "Running away from my success, Dad?" The words flew out before I could stop them. "That's new. Usually you just ignore it." He froze mid-step. "That's not fair, Danielle." "Fair?" I laughed. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you skipped my law school graduation for Elias's corporate retreat? Was it fair when you dismissed every case I won as beginner's luck? I never meant to. To what? Make me feel worthless? To treat everything I did like it was somehow less important than Elias's achievements?" The room fell silent again. Mom was crying quietly in the corner, while Laura and Alvin exchanged uncomfortable glances. "You know what the funny thing is?" I continued, the champagne making me bold. "All those times you bragged about Elias's business instincts, his perfect timing, it was my work that made it possible. My little lawyer thing saved his company." Elias stepped toward me. "Danny, I had no idea the regulatory changes came from your case. If I'd known—" "You'd what? Actually shown interest in my career? Asked me about my work instead of talking over me?" "Yes!" he exploded. "Yes, I would have. Do you think I enjoy knowing that I've been taking credit for my little sister's success?" "Could have fooled me," Lisa muttered. Alvin cleared his throat. "The board will need to know about this. The shareholders, too." "Of course they will," I smiled. "Imagine the headlines. Company's miraculous recovery, actually sister's legal victory." "Danielle," Mom finally spoke up, her voice shaky. "We never meant to make you feel less than—" "But you did," I cut her off. Every single day. And now, I gestured around the room. Now you're all suddenly interested in my work because it benefited Elias? That's not, Laura started. Save it. I held up my hand. I don't need your belated approval or your guilty consciences. I did this on my own, despite all of you, not because of you. Dad turned back from the door. You're right. The room fell silent once again. What did you say? I asked, not sure I'd heard correctly. You're right, he repeated, his voice rough. We've all been wrong, so wrong. Harrison, Mom whispered. No, Sophia. Our daughter just won a $50 million lawsuit that changed an entire industry, and we've spent the whole day talking about Elias's phone calls. Elias sat down heavily. Dad's right. We've been awful. Terrible, Laura agreed. The worst, Alvin added. Well, Sophia said brightly, this is getting good. Mind if I record? Sophia! Several voices protested at once. What? This is solid gold. The overlooked daughter, the prodigal son, the family revelation. It's perfect. It's private now, Mom said firmly. Is it? I asked. Weren't you all just celebrating Elias's success publicly? Why should my victory be kept quiet? The implications of my words hung in the air. Everyone knew that tomorrow the story would break. The anonymous lawyer would be revealed, and the connection to Elias's company would become public knowledge. To my sister, Elias raised his glass again, his voice sincere for the first time that day. The real success story in this family. I looked at him over my champagne glass, seeing real regret in his eyes. Better late than never, I suppose. But we all knew this was just the beginning. The real storm was still coming. The story's breaking, Sophia announced, holding up her phone. My editor just pushed it live. The notification pinged on everyone's phones simultaneously. I watched as their faces changed while reading the headline. Anonymous legal crusader revealed how one lawyer's victory saved her brother's company. They used my favorite photo of you, Lisa grinned, showing me her screen. The one from after we won. Dad's face had gone pale as he scrolled through the article. In a twist of karmic justice, he read aloud, the overlooked younger sister of business mogul Elias proved to be the family's true powerhouse. Keep reading, Sophia encouraged. It gets better. Sources close to the family describe a pattern of dismissive behavior toward the accomplished attorney's achievements. Laura trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Who were these sources? Elias demanded. A good journalist never reveals, Sophia began. It was me, Lisa stood up. I told her everything, every missed graduation, every dismissive comment, every time they chose your events over hers. Someone needed to tell the truth. Mom sank into a chair. It's all there. Everything we did, everything we didn't do. The phone's starting to ring, Alvin announced, holding up his buzzing cell. Business reporters, investors, everyone wants a comment. Let them wait, Elias said firmly. He turned to me. Danielle, I need to say something. Save your speech, Elias. No, you need to hear this, and everyone else needs to hear it too. He stood up, addressing the room. My sister is brilliant. She's always been brilliant, and I've spent years taking advantage of her success while pretending I didn't notice it. Elias, Laura touched his arm. Let me finish. That company everyone's been congratulating me about, it would be bankrupt right now if it weren't for Danielle. All those regulatory changes that fell into our lap, that was her. She fought for 3 years while we mocked her dedication, and she won. She won big. Dad stepped forward. Sweetheart, I don't know how to even begin to apologize. Then don't, I cut him off. Don't apologize because you have to, because it's gone public, because you're embarrassed. That's not what I want. What do you want? Mom asked softly. I want you to understand what you did. Really understand it. How it felt to sit at every family dinner and listen to endless praise for Elias while my achievements weren't even worth mentioning. How it felt to win case after case and have them dismissed as cute little victories. How it felt to fight the biggest battle of my career, knowing none of you cared enough to even ask about it. The silence that followed was deafening. $50 million, Alvin whispered, shaking his head. You won $50 million and reshaped an entire industry. And saved your company in the process, Lisa added. Don't forget that part. More phones started ringing. The story was spreading. We need to make a statement, Laura said, her PR instincts kicking in. Get ahead of this. Oh, now you want to talk about my work? I laughed. Now it's important enough to discuss? Danny, Elias started. Don't Danny me. You don't get to act like the proud big brother now. None of you get to pretend you've always supported me. The truth is out there now, all of it. Sophia's phone buzzed again. Your firm's releasing a statement. They're naming you as lead counsel on the case. Good, I said firmly. No more hiding in the shadows. No more being the family afterthought. Dad sank into a chair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I failed you. Yes, I agreed. You did. All of you did. But you know what? I succeeded anyway. Without your support, without your approval, without your notice, I did it all on my own. Not entirely on your own, Lisa corrected, squeezing my hand. Some of us always knew how amazing you are. The room fell quiet again, broken only by the constant buzzing of phones. The story was everywhere now, impossible to ignore, impossible to minimize. So, I said, looking around at my shell-shocked family, who wants to do another family photo, this time with the actual success story in the center? Mom burst into tears. Dad looked like he'd been punched. Elias just nodded slowly, understanding the justice in my words. I think, Sophia said, still typing on her phone, this is going to be one hell of a story. It already is, I replied, watching my family's carefully constructed hierarchy crumble around us. It already is. The truth was finally out, and there was no going back. The overlooked sister had stepped into the spotlight, and this time no one could look away. Ready for this? Lisa asked, straightening my blazer as we stood outside the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them all waiting. Dad, Mom, Elias, Laura, Alvin, and a room full of board members and reporters. The first joint press conference between my firm and my brother's company. I've been ready my whole life, I replied, pushing open the door. Camera flashes erupted as I walked to the podium, Elias stepping aside to make room for me. The gesture wasn't lost on anyone, especially not Dad, whose eyes followed my every move. Good morning, I began, my voice steady. Today, we're announcing a historic partnership between Morris and Stanley Law and Wright Industries. As I outlined the details of how my legal victory had transformed the industry and saved multiple companies, including my brother's, I watched my family's faces. Mom was crying again, but this time they were different tears. Dad sat straight-backed, actually listening to every word. Elias nodded along, no longer trying to steal the spotlight. And now, I concluded, I'll take your questions. A forest of hands shot up. I pointed to a reporter in the front row. How does it feel to have saved your brother's company while remaining anonymous for so long? It feels, I glanced at Elias, like justice. Another reporter stood. Mr. Wright, how did you feel when you learned the truth about your sister's role in your company's survival? Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Elias stepped forward to the microphone. I felt ashamed, he said simply. Ashamed that I'd spent years overlooking my sister's brilliance. But mostly I felt proud. Prouder than I've ever been of any of my own achievements. The room buzzed with excitement at his candor. Ms. Wright, another reporter called out, will you be taking a position with your brother's company? No, I smiled. I'm quite happy where I am, leading my own team, fighting my own battles, but our firms will be working together moving forward. As equals, Elias added firmly. After the press conference in the privacy of the boardroom, Dad finally spoke up. Danielle, I've been trying to find the right words. Don't strain yourself, Dad. I said, but without the bitterness that had colored my voice for so long. No, please, let me say this. He stood up, looking older, but somehow more human than I'd ever seen him. I spent years looking for success in all the wrong places. I was so busy watching Elias that I missed the real powerhouse right in front of me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned that yet, but I am asking for a chance to do better. Mom reached for his hand, then mine. We both are. Well, I said, you can start by coming to my court appearances. I have another big case starting next month. Front row, Dad promised. Every day. Even if Elias has a board meeting? I challenged. He can handle those on his own, Dad replied firmly. I want to watch my daughter in action. Elias cleared his throat. Speaking of action, Danielle, would you consider joining our board of directors? Not as an employee, but as an independent member. We could use your legal expertise. And your integrity, Laura added quietly. I looked at Lisa, who gave me an encouraging nod. I'll think about it. That's more than we deserve, Alvin admitted. Sophia, who'd been scribbling notes in the corner, looked up. This is going to make one hell of a follow-up story. Family reconciliation in the wake of legal victory. No, I corrected her. Family learns to see clearly for the first time. I like that, Mom smiled tearfully. As we gathered our things to leave, Dad touched my arm. Danielle, that photo you mentioned, the one with you in the center, what about it? Can we take it now? Not for the press, not for show, just for us. To remember this moment when everything changed. I looked around at my family, really looked at them. Dad's hopeful expression, Mom's gentle smile, Elias's genuine respect, Laura's newfound humility, Alvin's grudging admiration, and beside me, Lisa's unwavering support and Sophia's chronicling presence. Okay, I agreed. But this time, I'm not standing on the edges. No, Elias said firmly. This time, you're exactly where you belong, in the spotlight. As we posed for the photo, I realized something. Success wasn't just about winning cases or proving people wrong. Sometimes it was about giving people the chance to prove themselves right. Everyone ready? Sophia held up her camera. Ready, I said, standing tall in the center of my family, no longer overshadowed, no longer overlooked. The camera flashed, capturing not just an image, but a new beginning. One where being seen wasn't something I had to fight for. It was something I'd finally earned, and this time everyone was watching.